This video was created as an overview of the Protect the Results training series. Throughout this video, we will cover key aspects of the Protect the Results de-escalation webinar. For more information, please click the link in the description box to watch the full training series. Before we jump in, let's take a moment to name what de-escalation means to you. Based on your lived experience, has there recently been a time where you've used de-escalation skills or tactics? The truth is, a lot of the time we are not aware that we're actually using de-escalation in our everyday lives. And that's important to keep in mind during the rest of the presentation. In a moment, we will review the guiding principles of de-escalation. But first, let's put ourselves in the mindset that today is the day. It is go day. We are taking to the streets today. The first guiding principle of de-escalation is remaining calm. It is important to remain calm because a lot is going to be happening around you in the moment. But taking a second for a deep breath or a moment of silence to center yourself is very important, and it will assist you in setting the tone. Body language is just another way of communicating. So using your body language to assure the other person through eye contact, visible hands at your side, staying still, is an important aspect of keeping the situation calm. Showing understanding or empathy, searching for a piece of common ground with the aggressor, finding something you relate to allows for a flow of conversation. It also allows for the other person to be heard and gives you an opportunity throughout the conversation to attempt to commit to solving the issue peacefully. Now, this can be really hard, and it's totally okay if you don't reach this level of commitment during your conversation. It might be helpful to provide space for the person to save face, meaning providing them an out or a place to redeem themselves to allow them to possibly acknowledge maybe they've done something wrong. It is also important to know your personal comfort level. When is it time to walk away? When have you felt like you've done enough and need to take a step back from the space? At some point, this will become clear. The person is going to stand down or not. Pick a comfort level and stick to it. Keeping those guidelines in mind, let's talk more about how to prepare for de-escalation. When planning your action, it's important to work through a few action items. The first thing you should do is talk through what your group agreements are. These are agreements that everyone agrees to follow while at the event. For example, the buddy system, wearing a mask, making sure that there are no weapons, or a commitment to no violence. These are just some examples of group agreements. Next, know your limits. It's important to name what your comfort line is and share that with your fellow event organizers. It's also okay if your comfort zone is different from others, as long as everyone respects each other's lines and there are a few plans in place. It's really hard in the moment to make a rational decision if so much chaos is happening. So having 1 or 2 or even 3 plans is really important. Next, name your triggers. What we mean by triggers are what is something that is going to happen that might alter your mental and emotional state. Maybe it will make you angry or sad. It's important to discuss this with your group so that you can take care of one another, and when someone's triggers are activated, know what to do. Lastly, have an exit strategy. Have a plan for how you're going to leave. And again, it's really important to have multiple plans, especially when it comes to exit strategy. If you're in an area with no public transit, what are you going to do to make sure that you didn't leave anyone behind? Things like that are super important to think about beforehand so you know what the plan is when it's go time. Dealing with issues as they arise is very important to everyone's health and safety. Make sure to stick to your plan. There's a reason why you've made not only 1, but 2, or maybe even 3. Recognize triggers in yourself and others and stick to the backup plans to make sure that everyone stays healthy. If a disbursement agent is present, it's important to remain calm. These are created to cause chaos and panic and even stress. The most important thing is to stay calm and make sure that you leave the area and help others to safety as well. In the event of an active shooter, it's important to remain calm but move quickly. Identify the threat and where they are and work with your safety coordinator to leave the area as quickly as possible and make sure as many people are accounted for and safe as you can. Next, expect the unexpected. It is important to think about what could occur during a large-scale direct action. Property damage, for example, is something that might occur during your event. It's important to remember those group agreements and remind others if you see things escalating. If people cannot respect the agreements, de-escalate or ask them to leave. The next topic we will be discussing is police and alt-right violence. Again, you should refer to your action agreements or group agreements when it comes to any type of violence at your event. However, we do know that police have a history of ignoring alt-right-wing violence and standing by during direct action events. One of the event roles we will be discussing later on is a police liaison. This is a person who should be interacting or telling others how to interact or not interact with the police. There is a big difference between rural and urban settings when it comes to this topic, so asking yourself who is more likely to show up in your area is really important. What is the history of alt-right or police violence where you live or where your event will be? How have people dealt with that in the past, both effectively or ineffectively? And lastly, stay focused on the mission and your message. Why are you there in the first place? When it comes to alerting the police about your event, there are pros and cons. It may help to de-escalate the police presence, meaning because they will already know beforehand you will be there, they will not have any surprises on their end, so they'll know what to expect. It is also a sign that you're willing to work with them because you've reached out to them. This might assist in having them be more active and assisting with counter-protesters. However, there are some cons. It actually may result in unnecessary escalation of your event, meaning the mere presence of the police may cause the event to be escalated due to their history of violence, the weapons they carry, and other factors. It also may lead to an increased likelihood of violence towards marginalized communities and communities of color. And finally, alerting the police will eliminate any element of surprise if this is a tactic that is needed for your event. So, we have named the guiding principles of de-escalation and talked about some key topics to keep in mind during the planning process. Now, let's talk about some important roles and responsibilities you will want to make sure you have assigned for your protest. First up is safety coordinator. Safety coordinators monitor the tone of the protest. Now, there might be a difference between the agreed upon community agreements and the reality of what's actually happening on the ground. It's their job to constantly monitor and step in when needed to remind folks what the agreed upon tone was. They should also be anticipating, regulating, and resolving any conflicts if needed. The goal is to make sure that there is as little conflict as possible so that it does not lead to any sort of violence. And this should not just be a 1 or 2 person job. If your event or march or rally has 1,000 people at it, you want to make sure that there are several folks distributed throughout the event so that they can continue to monitor. The safety coordinator should also be ready and equipped to provide any information necessary to event goers. Everything from where the public restroom is to what to do in a moment of violence. Next, we will be talking about police liaison. We mentioned them earlier in the video. They are a really critical role in de-escalation. Depending on what your group agreements are as far as alerting the police, your event police liaison should be proactively engaging with the police, establishing a relationship and a line of communication. It is really important to note that they do not make decisions on behalf of the group or speak on behalf of the group. Make sure the police liaison is clear on the decision-making structure of the event, and when they are speaking with police, that the liaisons are only the messengers, and that the police know that. When thinking about police liaisons, it's important to pick someone who is comfortable with police interaction, someone who may have more privilege or possibly experience with the military. Some folks who may be especially good for this role include veterans or faith leaders. The last role we will be discussing is legal observer. Volunteers who have been trained as legal observers. Now, it's really important to note that they support the protests and their rights to be there legally, but they are not a part of the protest. They act as independent witnesses to police behavior. They're a third party. All right, y'all, we are in the home stretch. Let's review some tips and tricks for de-escalation. First, make sure to introduce yourself. Offer a handshake, or in COVID times, an elbow bump, and ask them what their name is. Tell them you're smiling under your mask. It's really important to keep your hands visible, as we mentioned before. Body language is just another form of communication, so make sure to remove any sunglasses and to hold eye contact. Attempt to match or lower the volume, meaning if someone is screaming at you, speak at your normal voice and try to lower their volume. Lastly, Try and move the conversation away from where the action is. That means away from other people or off to the side. This is both for safety, but also so that the event can continue on while you're speaking. Finally, we wanted to provide you with some resources so that you know everything you need to know about your rights. All of these links will be found in the description box, and we encourage you to review them before the event. We hope you found this video helpful, and for more information, please visit protectresults.com.